You look like you're slumming it.
I am slumming it. This is like the definition of slumming it. This is a rough setup. We're gonna try it once, and I think it's only gonna be once.
Where's the office? What happened to the office?
It's there, but it's now part of the bedroom.
Oh,
That's
wow.
Yeah. So the recording space for the pod until the office space I'm going to rent is rented is kind of just random spots around the living room that look the most aesthetically pleasing.
So right now you're getting Broedy unfiltered. You're getting
Yeah,
Broedy after hours.
yeah. There you go. Yeah, it feels like that. It feels informal.
Nice. All right, then. Welcome, Misfits. Welcome to the Professional Misfits and Broedy After Hours. Roll those credits. From Sydney, Australia, all the way to Portland, USA, two misfits hang out after class to riff on the B-sides of professional life. These are your professional misfits. All the way from Sydney, Australia, I'm your host, Christopher Sellers.
I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm Brody Ipox.
And we are your professional misfits. Not your slumming misfits, your professional misfits, where we riff on the B-sides of professional life. And it's episode 64, Misfits. Today we're asking, like, do you do it for the money? Should you do it for the money? Would you do it for the money? Could you do it for the money? And everything in between. I think it's a tidy little follow-up from last week's episode where we were talking about the true cost of sex work.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't listened to episode 63, go back, have a listen to the date that I went on, and the outcome, and like and subscribe and all that sort of business, Misfits, because that helps us out, and that's nice. It means I don't have to scream at Broedy and say what's going on. But the theme that comes out of that sort of thing was, it's quick, easy money, this sort of thing, which prompts the discussion on this episode of when do we do it for the money? Because there's certain ethics and moralities and guidelines that we all sort of have around that. So I'm sure Broedy and I have got a few stories. Be like as sort of a taster, like where are you at? Like considering what we talked about last week and how this episode arrives on your doorstep. Like what's your hot and spicy take?
Yeah, I mean, well, what are you asking first? Because I mean, this topic's so broad. Like you
Mm,
said, there's like different facets of this, like when you should do it for the money, how much money should that be, what are you doing for money, that kind of thing. Um, for me, and like I've thought this forever. If you have a passion and you can find a way to make money with it, then you are obligated to. Like you need to
that's
do
interesting.
that. And I mean, that's my spicy take. You know what I
All right.
mean?
Well, we'll touch on that on the way through, and then right now we'll give a quick shout out to IGU, who's the sponsors. Who's the sponsors of season 6 of the Misfits. So IGU is brought to you. No, it's the other way around. Brought to you by IGU, an old game with a new twist where modern innovation and nostalgia come together to bring you Tag for today. You can find it on Apple Play, Apple Store and Google Play. Brody's working on it right now. It went wildfire and then like crashed the system and they had to restore everything. So you need to get on it, Misfits. True
Yes.
story, B?
Yes, and we've actually officially broken the 10,000 download point. So,
Dude,
thank you,
congrats.
Misfits. Yeah, that's a big milestone
Shout
for
out
an
to
app.
Nick as well. Congrats, Nick.
Yes, shout out Nick. Yeah, that's it's exciting. You guys should definitely check it out. It's something that I feel is new.
Yeah,
It's different. It's not just the same old copy and paste. What can we fit into an app kind of thing? It's something new, but
it's a little bit misfit.
yeah, it is a little bit misfit, actually. I think that's why it works.
All right. So jumping into today's topic, do you do it for the money? Well, let's start simple. I asked you last week, have you ever done it just for the money? And then you, Riley, said to me, never do cabinetry, never do cabinet making. What's the story?
Oh wow, you got a good memory. Yeah, so that was Brody, very early 20s. Um, Small apartment. We've got 3 out of the 5 kids. Life was just different. Life was just
Mm.
different. I hadn't figured out what exactly marketing was per se in the way that I work it today. I had just started, so there was like little things I was doing on the side, but one of my main jobs was I was working at a cabinet shop for a while.
Hmm.
That was holy shit. I've done hard labor, construction, um, moving company, worked for a moving company, canning factory. We've talked about this
Yes, yes,
before.
yes,
I've
yes.
worked in a canning factory. Lots of hard labor jobs. I've done them. This was just something. This was something else, and I don't know if it was the machines. I don't know if it was the people. I don't know if it was the environment. It was just fuck, dude. That is nose to the grindstone type of shit. And I realized that fuck, as much as there's like certain stuff I can do, there's certain stuff I cannot. And I'll tell you, so one of the jobs when you are at this factory is gluing the panels together. So you take about
Okay.
2 inch slats,
Yep.
right? And then you have this big giant machine and you build the slats up into a panel and you
Hmm.
clamp the panels
Yeah, yeah,
down and you
yeah.
spread glue and you do all that stuff. Um, I sound like a bitch to everybody that makes fucking cabinets, but that shit scared the fuck out of me because
Okay.
you would go clamp the panels down, and if it wasn't set perfectly, and if all of those 2 inch slats weren't just level with each other, it would pop out at you. It would fucking, and that it hurt. It hurt. Number one, and number two, it was just scary as shit. So I
Mm.
ended up going to the foreman. And I was like, dude, I'm not doing that again. Like you can put me back on the milling line. You can. There's all sorts of shit that I will do that is not that. And 2 days later, that foreman left to go work at another location for this company, and the foreman that came in was he did not care. He was like, no, bro,
Right.
I don't have shit for you anywhere else. Like that's where you're at. If you want hours, that's where you're gonna be. And I think number one, being told like, bro, fuck you, basically. And
Mm.
then number two, it being something that I wanted to tell someone else, fuck you. It was perfect storm. I ended up quitting and going back to the moving company that I had worked for prior, because yeah, that was rough, dude. It was rough. It was rough for so many reasons other than the
Why
fucking
why were
slot
you
machine.
there? Like, was it a? I mean, was it a good wage? Was it a good? Because that's
It
sort of like on topic.
it was. God damn! I got my alarm going off. Sorry, Misfits. Love you so much.
Oh,
I
amateur.
do need this out. Um, yeah. So the thing was, and I hope the Misfits don't take this the wrong way. I was a young kid, but when I was working for the moving company, a lot of the workforce was Hispanic, and they spoke to
Hmm.
each other in Spanish.
Hmm.
And it was really hard for me. Like that nobody would talk to me. I didn't really have friends. I felt really isolated, and it
Right.
was just yeah. So something new came along, and I was like, shit, I'll try it, absolutely. And yeah, I went running back, and I didn't complain about people not fucking wanting to talk to me in English.
Well, has there, apart from something not working out, has there ever been a gig? Because now you're in marketing in the sexy world of contracts, so like 6 months, 12 months, and
Mhm,
projects and
mhm,
this and that. Have you ever a gig's come across your table and you have the feeling that it's like, look, this isn't for me, it's not the right fit, and then you check the dollar amount and you're like, hang on, and you kind of give it, and then you start to have that dance with yourself. You know what I mean? Because you'd
mhm,
pass
mhm.
on any other thing, and then you see that number, and you're like, you start to
Yes.
qualify. It's
Yeah.
only 6 months. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. More than once. I mean, especially in the contract space.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, because look, it's feast or famine a lot of the times.
You took the words, I mean, pun intended, but you took the words out of my mouth. I was about to say, yeah.
Because seriously, I've had years where I'm pulling in 4, 5, 6 grand a month, and
Mm-hmm.
I've had years where it doesn't look like that.
Right.
It doesn't look like that. So yeah, there's been a couple. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is a finance company that kind of, whew, that was rough. It was when I first started actually consulting and kind of like doing my own thing. I'd say I was more
Mm-hmm.
freelance than
Yep.
contract
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
business oriented. And I came across these guys, and I've told you about them, Sensei, and name dropping. I don't even care because look, I'll tell you what, this was just, no matter what they promised, the thing that I knew in my mind was how they actually worked and how they operated. And it
Right.
was not something that I agreed with.
Right.
And again, still because of the promises being made, I was like, sure, yeah, I'll do it. Yep, I'll be the guy.
Right. Right.
And
So, so just to walk everyone through. So you knew it wasn't a great fit. You knew the company wasn't a great fit, but because of the offer, it was sort of better the devil you know, and you took them up on it.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, please
yeah.
continue.
Yeah, so it ended up taking a year contract with them.
Mm-hmm.
First 6 months of it, I'd say were even pretty damn good. I got the agreed upon pay, everything was great. I was actually thrown off by the success of it.
Okay.
Uh, yes, circa to the last 6 months of the contract, it was awful. I was put in a position of leadership, and man, some of the complaints that I got, some of the employees that hadn't seen pay for months on end, some
Oh
of
wow.
the, yeah, just stuff that I kind of knew, you know what I mean? That I was like, oh
Okay.
shit, that's what I thought was going to be me. And instead of it being me, I'm the one that's put in front of it. And
Right. Right. Right.
I don't have any fucking answer. I don't pay you guys. As
Yeah.
much as I'm here and I'm like leading the team for the marketing efforts and the social media, I I don't. That's all I got for you. Yes, I
Mm,
talk to the owners every day, every single day, multiple times a day. But shit, I don't know how to turn around also and tell someone, hey, it's not even just that you're not getting paid, it's that I am. And I don't
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
know how to tell you that if I fuck that up for me, I'm in a really bad spot.
Mm.
Do you know what I'm saying? And it was just it.
I do. It's not ideal for anyone,
No, no,
but here
no.
you are. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the first situation in my life where really I felt like the boy in the dam with his finger in the dam. It was just, and ultimately, and not that I was the glue that held the company together, right? But ultimately, they they are not what they were when I left. That's for sure. And I think that had a lot more to do with how they were operating
Yeah.
on the employee facing side. But
Mm.
yeah, no, that was one thing that, yeah, from the jump, dude, I knew it. And I knew who I was getting into bed with, and I knew what it could potentially look like. I knew what that could mean for me if it did end up looking like that. And I said, fuck it. They promised this, and that
Yeah.
would be amazing for me.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Let's see. No, hold on. Before we get any deeper on me, you've got to answer both of those questions now.
What was the okay? What was
The
backtrack?
the
What was the question?
the first question, I mean, wasn't really a question, but tell us about a job that you've had that was just dog shit. At least so we're on level plane, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And then question number two is: has there been a contract, a gig, a job that
Yeah.
you've taken that maybe the dollar amount was more than the moral ambiguity that was screaming in your face.
Yeah, okay. The first one, I did think about the first one, whether I've taken a gig just for the money. And I came up with two because they're two sort of different circumstances. It's funny that you mentioned canning, which was literally episode one Misfits. So go back
Yep.
and check it out because I'm going to reference
Yes.
it again. Like my first gig in Sydney, moving from Newcastle to come down to Sydney to start acting college, was working behind a bar in a strip club. I
Mhm.
didn't know at the time, but then like I'm in there and I get there and then I'm being paid a decent rate, and then on top of that, this is back when cash tips were a thing, and I was going home with maybe a couple of hundred every
Mhm.
night. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So when you're a student in the city, that's
Decent.
groceries, that's
Decent.
date
That's
money,
decent.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, on top of your salary. So you're doing it means I can get a cab home every night. All that sort of shit. Bought a flat screen television back then.
Yep. Hmm.
Um, but I remember even in the interview and in the episode we talk about it, like this is sort of greasy and not my fit, but it's sort of as a curiosity. I'll see how we go. And then of course, like a couple of weeks into it, like I knew I was hating it. It's on the one hand, it seems to be like every guy's dream, like, oh my god, get to hang out with hot chicks every night, fuck, you must love it. It's like, nah, bro, it's skeezy as fuck.
Well, see,
But
that's what I was
go
gonna
back.
say. Someone as like intellectual as you, again, I just imagine it becoming more of the people watching, and I
It
don't imagine you would
a
like what
thousand percent, a thousand
you're
percent. Like
seeing.
to sum it up, and I know I summed it up in the episode, so go back and listen, Misfits. It's the strip club is a circus, right? The
Mm,
girls are the
yes, yes, I
acrobats.
remember this. Yep,
The girls
yep,
are the acrobats. They're on the poles. They're the feature. You know what I mean?
yep.
The MC is the ringmaster. The clients are actually the clowns, right? And the people watching the show are the bar staff and security,
Yep.
because they're watching like this dynamic of sex and money just play out. And it was a fascinating study for both sides of the fence, and really leads to the heart of this conversation. Like, what would you do for money? What won't you do for money? I remember classically there's a classic rule in all strip clubs that you don't touch the girls, right? And
Hmm.
that was
Hmm.
their boundary that they held on to, like, don't fucking touch me, no, 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 no. And I totally respect that
That's
until,
staff and
hang on,
clients. Yeah.
correct,
Mhm.
until Texas oil baron walks into town.
Mm,
All bets are off. They're sitting on his lap. They're giving him massages. And vice versa. So immediately that boundary and that condition's thrown out, because like they can make a couple of hundred, maybe a couple of grand on tips and lap dances and whatever, right? So, but look, so even as a bartender, like I knew it wasn't a great fit, and whatever, and I'd even ask myself, like, what am I sort of doing here? Until eventually I was until eventually I was fired. So it's not
you
even
have to
like
go
I
to
left.
episode 1 to hear that story.
So eventually I was fired. So it wasn't even like I left on my own terms. Like, and so similar to you, I can say, oh, like young kid, I would have been 21, 22, maybe, but still like self-aware enough to go, look, I can quit and get something else. Like if I'm working in a bar here, I can work in a bar anywhere, right?
Right, right.
Um, but I didn't, and it's again, I could sort of say it was for
No
money,
more
say it
bars
was for the
since.
tips. Oh, I've worked in bars since, sure.
Okay, okay.
Like in London and like whatever, and
Hmm.
never, but
Hmm.
never another strip club or never a joint like that.
Okay.
Um, so and it's to the heart of this conversation. Like it was obviously you're earning like a decent hourly wage. It's not like I'm making 200K a year, but when you're 21, 22, and you've got an extra bit of cash in your pocket and you can get by and you can pay your bills and you can save, and you can buy some decent clothes and shit when you're a student, you're sort of happy with that. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
guess between studying and then working 2, maybe 3 nights a week at this joint, I was okay.
Hmm.
But again,
Hmm.
I knew it wasn't good for me, and eventually I was fired and whatever. So
Quick
that's
question
that's
about that
yeah.
circumstance. Do you feel like the social setting that you had around you at the time made it easier to endure the negative sides of that? Because that was acting college, correct?
Yeah.
So you were kind of like in an environment that Chris loves. You know what I mean? Like you're like,
I was, and it was funny because I remember coming back to college. Um, I think I was like I'm first year, right? So I'm fresh, and I'm still kind of getting to learn the kids in my class, really. And I started, yeah, I got this, and again, like I didn't know this was a strip club until I showed up and started working. It wasn't advertised, so I
yeah,
was
I don't
definitely like, oh
imagine they
well,
do in the listing.
right. It's like, yeah, I was, oh, I'll see how it goes, And I remember telling the kids in the class, like, I'm working behind a bar at a strip club, and what I expected was the sort of backlash, like, really, like, dude, like, what,
Hmm.
But instead,
Hmm.
like, again, because we're all creatives, they're like, fucking cool. That must be so interesting. Like, what a great character study. Like, meh, 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 meh. And I'm like, so your point's right. Like, these guys sort of made it okay. I won't say they enabled me. That's not fair. It was entirely my decision. But they weren't overtly giving me the side eye and critiquing me. You
Right,
know.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one experience. My second sort of example is like, look, yeah, as a then like trained actor and then starting to get sort of commercial work like with ads and whatever else. Look, you will you will be handed contracts for ads which are fucking ridiculous, right? The one I got paid the most for was like for a beef ad, and I had no dialogue, and I was literally on screen for the sum of 5 to 10 seconds, like in total, and was paid circa 8 to 10 grand, right?
Love that. What the
Right. And it was two days work, 2 days
fuck?
work. Let's say 2 full days on set. And if you know anything about film sets, there's a lot of sitting around and waiting because nothing's going on until they
So
need you.
I was going to interrupt. Can real quick, can you give the Misfits, because I feel like this is an interesting
Mm.
spot to interject, kind of like what that would look like, right? So 8 to 10 grand, 2 days. What's my contract? You said you have no dialogue. Like, are
Yeah.
you hanging out on set? Is someone running you
Right.
through what you're doing?
So the easiest way to explain, I'll explain day two. That's the easiest thing. They had a big
Okay.
studio, so think of a giant fucking warehouse, like huge warehouse, right? For filming on set, and they've got a green screen or got everything mapped like a big black. Actually, they might have even been shooting against a big black curtain for fucking stylistic reasons, right? And so all of the crew and the cameras and the director and this time the client was actually in there in the studio.
No
um
pressure.
yeah, and that's rare, Misfits. It's really, really rare to have
Okay.
the client on set. Normally they'll just get the footage and be like, cool, because basically you don't want the client on set, because film crews and directors know what the fuck they're doing, and when a client comes in from the outside, they're like, oh wait, can he smile, can we get this,
We
is this is
talked
this
about this. Yeah.
this shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you never want
Yeah.
them on set. But they were being professional. They were sitting and observing and whatever. So the studio's all indoors and probably outdoors in a side room or even in a separate sort of demountable fucking office
Hmm.
away from the studio, because you need to be quiet. You'll have all the actors, you'll have makeup and like whatever. And you're literally sitting outside the studio wherever you're supposed to be waiting for hours. Um, Playing on your phone, chatting, flirting with the makeup girls, whatever, until they call you, right? So even though, let's say that the call time for day two might be, all right, you need to be here at 8 a.m. And sure,
Hmm.
I'm here. It's like, great. So, but there's no school schedule about we're shooting this and then this and then this and then this. Like the crew have it. The crew know what order they're going to shoot in. And even then, it'll get changed around. And even
Interesting.
then, the director will change their mind. So it's basically, we're calling you for the day. You need to be here at 8. The good news is, like, once you shoot, you're done, you can leave. But of course, you never know when that is. So let's say I got there at 8 and I'm sitting around for the first 3 hours or something, and then someone tells the makeup girl to touch me up, and they touch me up, and then they bring me in. So let's say I'm walking into the studio at like 11 or 12, and I'll shoot whatever I need to shoot for the space of 20 minutes, half an hour, being charitable. Thanks very much. You're done. I can go home, and then within 14 to 28 days, I'll have my check via my agent.
Hmm.
Right.
Interesting. Okay.
So there's a snapshot, but there's been commercials where you look at this and go, I don't give a fuck about this product.
Hmm.
I don't give a fuck about this service. and I'd say 90% of commercials are like that, because who cares about insurance, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
actors are being paid to do those ads. And it's, again, what I've just explained, 2 days worth of work, and you will get paid considerably for what you're trained to basically to do. And the reason I'm mentioning it is it's because it's same but different, right? Like it's for you, taking the contract with Sensei was like over the course of a year, but it was basically the same predicament. Like, I know what I'm getting myself into. It's not a great fit for me. I don't really care, but the money's decent, blah 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 blah. And then for me, with a beef commercial, like I you know I'm
No, that's fair. That's fair.
can't say that I'm passionate about beef and the survival of the Australian beef industry, but you want to pay me to work, like to do this thing for 2 days or whatever.
What was
So
the
okay,
commercial? What was it? Just strictly like buy our beef, or was
no,
it
it was really funny.
preservation?
It was they'd taken a musical number. I think it was, that's right. I am the very model of a modern Major General from Pirates of Penzance, and reworded it. So the butcher is now singing this to all these different people across Australia, right?
Okay.
And so you're going through different regions, and you're at the barbecue, and you're here and you're there, and in the actual butcher shop and everything else, so it's kind of cool. And I'm
Yeah.
like a featured extra for all of, again, like 10 seconds. But why it was so well paid was because it was run during the Christmas holiday period, and it was over here. Like, cricket's a big thing in summer, right? The sport, and there's only like one or two ads that play in between every over, and the beef ad was one of them. So it went nationally, and it
wow,
was
okay.
shown
A lot.
like repeatedly, right? So even though I'd shot it like a few months prior, around Christmas time, dude, again, like, no dialogue, I'm getting people, you're the beef, I've seen you on the beef ad. I'm getting locals high-fiving me. I had my crazy ex message me and go, get the fuck off my television. I'm like, because then of course everyone's messaging her and go, oh my god, Chris
I
is
wasn't there for you.
right. And then, because everyone's messaging her, go, Chris is on a national ad. I'm like, oh god. So yeah, it's interesting. Like, I still took it for the money and for the work, but it was only 2 days as opposed to yours, which was 12 months. But arguably the principle is the same. Arguably, So
very
this,
similar. Very similar.
right. And then what? Okay, so what was the second question that because you asked me if I've ever done it for the money, and then
So
something that kind of went against my moral sort of conscience.
yes.
I look, I'll say yes out of ignorance, because I'm sure I have. I'm sure there's been like gigs that I've taken either out of desperation or just cause. There hasn't been anything in my sort of professional career that's come across my desk that I'm like, no fucking way. Partly, look, the good thing about building like an island for one is that you're only really I'm known for one thing, and you're coming to me for one thing. So if you want to like design better innovation, if you want to understand creativity and ideas and like blah 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 blah, then you're coming to me specifically for that. And yet, as of recording, I've not had someone, let's say, from the gambling industry come to me and say, how can we better, craft our things to fucking manipulate customers to make sure that they sit at our tables longer and waste more money. That's probably something I'd say no thank you to.
What if it was astronomical?
Hey, good question. And if I got to be honest, I say I don't know, because the fucking catch with being a little creative kid is you can qualify it 50 different ways, can't you? and it's funny, you can qualify it 50 different ways, because like, oh, if I just do this thing, and if I just focus on this bit, that's all they're really asking me, and then I've got this money, and then I've got freedom, and then I can do what I want to do. You know what I mean? I'm just a cog in the big machine. And this actually goes to something I was going to touch on later, but we're here now, because it's like earlier versions of ourselves, or even like your story about Sensei. Like, if Broedy was outside of himself looking at you, I had the impression we'd be kind of judgy. Like if
Oh,
someone else,
oh,
right?
dude.
Okay, so if someone else was sort of riffing on like your story, you'd be like, dude, like you sold your soul, you know, you did, you know. Um, but when it's you, you can qualify it, you can
Mhm,
find
mhm,
your angle, you can
mhm.
justify, you know,
Yep.
and that's true of all of us, absolutely all of us, and that's what I think is interesting, you know.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. And that's kind of why I asked about the large sum. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Because realistically, like that's the question, right? How many dollars for your soul? And it's it's an interesting question, and I don't want to get too philosophical about it. Really talking about the practical experience that I think a lot of people like you and I are talking about have had, where it's like, you know, again, was the devil sitting at my table and asking me if I'm going to sign up with Sensei? No. But did I know that it was against how I felt about doing things?
yeah.
Was it against who I knew I wanted to be? Of course, of course. And
I'll also like,
I signed on the dotted line. You
yeah,
know, like
and I'll
interesting.
also
Yeah.
say this, like it's sometimes a luxury. It's sometimes a luxury to have that kind of morality, I guess,
Hmm,
because I'm
hmm,
sure we've all
hmm.
been in circumstances, especially now when the cost of living is brutal, where you're like, I need something. I need a,
Interesting. That was
you
the
know,
cabinet shop, though. That
right.
was the
Okay. Okay. I didn't see. I didn't know that.
there's
You
there's a
didn't let the
there's
misfits know.
there's a little and what's funny too is because just like you're talking about with like angle and kind of perspective is like then it was like, dude, I need to eat, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you know, we weren't I'll qualify this too, Misfits. I've never been even in the points in my life when I've been homeless, actually homeless. I haven't been poor per se. I've always had a really great support system. I've always like had a really good insight and awareness of resources around
Hmm.
me, and like, you know, I've never been without food or you know, even a warm car to sleep in when I didn't have a home. Like that's kind of like what I'm getting at here. And so I won't say that like, you know, I've had to kill somebody to survive kind of deal,
Mm.
but at the same time, you know, that was the thing. Like you look at the cabinet shop, and we haven't even mentioned it in the selling of your soul, right? Like, but that's kind of like that's the same thing, right? Like that, if I had been forced to do that, if I couldn't go back to the moving company and like bro, there's pieces of me that would have been lost. I
Yeah.
promise
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And that was my issue with it, is I knew, fuck dude, this didn't feel good. It doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't feel like valid work. It just fuck this shit. And if I
Yeah.
had stayed, I would have been sacrificing something. And I think that's the misconception that a lot of people have about the selling of your soul, right? Like, yeah, it does come down to the dollar amount and or the action, right? But I think more than anything, what people are talking about in that analogy is the sacrifice of yourself that you're putting forward to that situation. Like that's
Yeah.
what that really means, you know, like am I willing to give up that piece of myself that says fuck it, I can't do this work? And who knows what that guy looks like, you know what I mean? Because I've seen a ton of those guys, and God bless all the blue collar workers, and I'm not saying anything shitty about that per se,
No.
just
No.
the quiet suffering of it, you know what I mean? I know there's a
You,
ton of people that yeah,
that's
just
it.
could.
Like when it's not the right fit. Like
Mm-hmm,
if it was
mm-hmm.
somebody else walking in to do cabinet working and they go, oh, fucking love this, love machines, love whatever. Like you're set, good for you,
Yep.
amazing.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's it's. I think specifically at the root of this when we're talking about like doing it for the money is like everyone, like the artistic dream is to be compensated well and respected for your craft.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
Your
so
craft,
not
right?
right. So whatever that happens to be,
Yep.
music, illustration, writing, whatever, right? That's
Mhm.
the dream. Like you mentioned at the very beginning, like find that thing that you love, and you sort of have an obligation to like take a stab at it, and then when you are rewarded for it, it's incredibly rewarding. But
Mhm.
there's in the meantime, there's all that grayscale of working some jobs that don't fill that bucket, but they need to pay the bills. And then at sort of like a higher end and probably more to do with like white collar corporate is like here's here's roles that are going to take your time, they're going to take your soul, you're going to trade your life for x amount. And the irony is like the company's going to own you, so what good is having that money? Because you're not traveling, you're not off the hook, you're not seeing your partner, you're not playing with your kids, you're not
I
enjoying
just
the car
said
that you
this to
bought, you're
somebody
not.
the other day, bro. That's the exchange, and a lot of people aren't like. And look again, misfits. I know we all got to eat. I'm not saying don't go do what you need to do. I'm just saying more often than not, I talk to folks that are just wildly dissatisfied with their job,
Yeah.
with the impact that it has on their life, just like you're talking about, right? Like it's not, dude, you got a great salary, bro. I'll never argue that. You've got a great salary, and I'm proud of you, Misfit, for providing for your family. I am. But tell me where your happiness is at. Tell me where your happiness is at. And then tell me on the flip side of that, not even just your happiness, how fulfilled are you? Right? Like, how fulfilled? Does that job do it for you? Do you come home and instead of it being a weight that you're leaving at the door, is it something that you carry? I love this. I love this work. This makes me proud. My
Mm.
kids are proud of me. It, there's an exchange. There's an exchange that I don't think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people are waking up to it, I guess is the better way to put it.
Well,
That.
I'd hope so. I'd hope so. It's sort of I guess it's the sort of moral or the message of living within your means. I think,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
it's going back to the strip club for a second. I remember one of the girls lamenting, like, I have to do this. Like, Sydney is so expensive. Like, I have to, and like she has to. Like, and I'm pretty sure this was the only. She was the type that was like a long-term, full-time stripper. Didn't do anything else.
Yeah, she'd been
But
there for a
also,
while.
right.
Right.
She's established, and sort of making the case is like, oh well, I have to. Like, a girl's got to eat. But also, like, said girl was wearing top to toe Gucci velour tracksuit, was living in Vaucluse, like an apartment in Vaucluse. So for those who don't know, like, very, very schmick. Like, so you're living at the high end, but you're opting to live at the high end and then sort of justifying this. So it's then about a lot. Then it's about the image and the lifestyle. Because I live here, because I have this image, because I have this sort of lifestyle, the work, whatever, that it's their fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm responsible and
That's
I could
exactly
dial
what
it.
I'm saying. Yeah.
Right.
It's the environment's fault. I can't do anything about it. I have to go work at fast food. I have to go work at construction. I have to do this. I have to do that. It's like, motherfucker, number one, you get to. There's a fucking bunch of
Mm.
people that don't have a fucking job, that don't have the skills that you have, that don't have the fucking healthy body to do the things that you're complaining about doing. And number two, you have every fucking means to change that situation. Every every single one, whether it's learning a new skill, whether it's networking, whether it's exploring. I mean, fuck, dude, how many opportunities have people had just walking down the fucking street willing to say I'm looking for an opportunity?
Mm. I've got a question here. Like, is it ever okay? Like, is it ever okay to do it just for the money, or to be motivated by the salary? Like, is it ever okay?
Yeah, I think so. I do. Yeah, and now look,
And let's actually, sorry, I'll set a qualifier there. It's like, you're
okay,
not desperate, right? So
right,
you
right, right,
you're
right.
you're comfortable, you're
Mm-hmm,
stable, So let's say you've got options,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
then someone makes you the fatal attraction offer of,
mm-hmm,
here, I want you to compromise on this, like for or whatever, however you decide to read it. But let's say like you're not desperate and you have options, and then someone comes along and offers you something that's probably not ideally like where you're at, but
Mm-hmm.
has a decent enough price tag attached to it. But you're aware that it would require some sort of compromise on your part. And of course, like all these things, you don't quite know what that will be before you head into it.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like it is like doing like a deal with the devil, but you don't know whether he's going to take a kidney, an eye, your left hand. You don't know what you're going to walk out
A
with.
loved one, your car, your house,
Right.
right? Yeah. So, look, I'll say this. I think the people most benefited by that scenario are the ones that can compartmentalize, right? Like I've seen a ton of dudes, and especially in the sales space, right, where it's like I'm going to be honest with you. Same. Let's use insurance as an example. I've worked with a ton of agents. I've worked with tons of agency managers, that kind of thing. I know they don't want to be fucking doing this. I know for a fact they do not want to slang insurance all day long, right? Like, again, even if you're good at it, even if you enjoy it, even if you're making good money, I know there's something inside of you that's talking to you that's not motherfucking insurance. And you can fucking die on that hill, but I'm going to die on mine. Okay. I know it's there. You are agreeing and saying, okay, I can compartmentalize that for X amount of years. I'm going to make this amount of money. It's going to set me up to do X, Y, and Z. If you can, if you really truly can compartmentalize, you can keep a level emotional field, and then you can make it through that. I think based off of what I've felt in the contract space, it's doable. It's a
Is it
scenario that's real.
like
I do.
10, 15, 20 years? That's doable.
Okay,
I'm
now
I'm questioning because it's number straight off the rip. It seems really really unhealthy to me. And second, again, like if you compartmentalize one thing, you then compartmentalize so much else of your life. And we're all aware, you should be aware, like how that bleeds into
Mhm,
relationships,
mhm,
kids, time,
mhm,
family,
mhm,
and all the rest of it. So
mhm.
that's why
And
I
see,
ask.
that's where again, it would have to be a perfect scenario, right? Like it
Mm.
would have to be somebody that again can go, okay, for the next 10 years, I'm going to be at this company.
10 years, fuck yeah,
Dude, oh, it fucking freaks me out too. I'm not saying
yeah,
it's for me,
right,
but
right, 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 right.
I think there are people that can pull it off. I think especially too, and this is interesting. This is interesting that we're here now, because what I wanted to bring into this conversation was the military. I
Okay,
wanted to bring the military into this conversation, right? Like, because number one, it's not even just for the money, it's what you're doing for the money. Bro, you are
yeah,
literally signing on the dotted line that says you are willing to fucking die for this paycheck.
I, yeah, but I'm sure to all our military folk out there, they're probably laughing at you right now because like,
Oh,
dude, what you're paid in any military service,
I
because they
agree.
don't, right, and they don't sell you on that, and they don't sell you on
No, they don't.
the golden handshake and everything else.
No,
They
no.
sell you on other things. Yeah,
Yeah, glory and fucking respect, and then you don't even
yeah,
get
yeah.
that. Look, I'm not daft to that. I'm just saying, right? When you look at an 18-year-old and he goes, okay, for the next for us in the U.S. is about 4 years is your
Yep,
general military contract.
yep.
So you sign up for the next 4 years, 4 to 8, if you're looking to have a lifelong compensation, and it's just, again, to me, is that the sell? Is that the sell? Okay, there's honor in what I'm doing, or is it, let's, and again, military folk, military misfits. I mean, beat me in the comments. I don't even care. That's my question, is like, what is the sell for you, right? Like, because again, I've thought about it, right? I mean, I was 18 years old at one point,
Mm.
and I didn't have a ton of options, so I was like, yeah, military. That I'll go in for 4 years. I'll make the money that I'm going to make. I'll get ripped. I'll network with a bunch of people. Like it doesn't sound as bad as
Yeah,
I think it does to someone my age now, where it's like back then I didn't even identify that it was like, dude, I'm just not willing to let a motherfucker boss me around for every second of every day for the next 4 years. And I'm not fucking willing to go die for some shit that I might not fucking believe in. I look, I mean, shit, that might just be me,
Yeah.
but I think more often than not, it's not just me. I think you get, and then you even get like the kids, shit, they get into the military, and fuck, they might have had the right head on them for all the right reasons, but then they get to the military and they're like,
Yeah.
whoa, fuck, bro,
Uh, and
whoa,
that's true. And arguably, yeah, and that's true. That can be true of any career. To be fair, like you think it's one thing.
fair,
You think it's one thing getting in. Like you think, like
fair,
law, same thing. Like I'm
fair,
justice.
right,
Justice, you know what I mean? I'm going to protect the little guy. I'm going to let the rule of law, rah, rah, rah. And then you learn real quickly, no, the law is a set of legislations. It's a game, and you're being paid to play the game smarter and better, but in compliance with somebody else. Like it's a complicit tennis match.
yeah,
That's what it is. For the most part, it's like law and justice seldom shake hands, for instance. And then you sort of make your peace with whatever that is for you. I guess I know we've covered it in a separate episode about it's you shouldn't really money or financial gain probably shouldn't be your prime motivator for careers or anything like that. Like it should be a factor, but if it's a
mm-hmm.
prime motivator, it sort of suggests that there's something else
Missing,
that's kind of missing. I
yeah,
guess it's that sort of question of like, are we? I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of why, or have a discussion around why it's such an attractive carrot. Because when you're describing the military, it's like, yeah, they're not sold on six figures. They're sold on community, and they're sold on structure and a purpose and a place and a routine. You know what I mean? And
mm-hmm.
being of worth and of value. Like, and those are all noble things.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of corporate structures try to emulate that, like with corporate culture and all that sort of shit. And even hospo and blue collar jobs, like you'll work in shitty places for longer because you like your team. You know what I mean? They're cool kids to hang out with for 8 hours or 10 hours a shift, and then someone sort of dangles this carrot of here's some more responsibility. And our little primate brains kind of light up and go, oh, grab the shiny thing, you know? And I guess what we're trying to prompt in this conversation is like, before you grab the shiny thing, ask yourself why and what that is, and what does it come with. um and those are reasonable questions to ask yourself, because a lot of people just grab the shiny thing and keep grabbing the shiny thing, and then it doesn't exactly lead them where they thought it would. It's I was trying to go back to something that you were saying before about probably about the cabinet making and realizing it's not for you. It was a similar sort of thing for me, and I mentioned it to Linda when we were having our conversation on that episode about whether you should follow your passions. That's right. And it's funny, like coming from acting college, and then even when I came back from London, even in London, I was writing and producing my own stuff and still working in bars and whatever. And then when I came back to Sydney, and yeah, could have grabbed hospo, could have grabbed some contract stuff and whatever else, but it got to a point where I was working more than I was writing. Basically, I was having a regular job. I was having regular hours, 5 days, 8, 9, 10 hour, whatever. And it made me really frustrated and really unhappy because I couldn't write as effectively or as creatively or at the level that I wanted to, right? It's sort of, I think I described it as a fitness. Like you run every day, and now I've got to work and just like run when I can. And so I feel unfit, and it's gross. And so in there was the nugget of insight for me. It's like, well, I can either give up this thing and go make bank, but I really don't want to. I'm really fucking upset. I'm really frustrated. I'm really annoyed. And of course, yeah, I probably can't. Well, I probably can't compartmentalize like that because I would then start to resent the gig because you're keeping me away from the things that I want to do. And so ever since then, it was like, cool, I guess I'm just stepping into the part-time world. And eventually that became, the professional contract world, which is basically part-time world, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's what it was for me. So at least I'm sort of in a position now where still like hustling for contracts is hustling for contracts.
Yep.
And that is tough. But I've realized over time that the 1 9 to 5 isn't a great fit for me at all, and it probably doesn't matter what the salary was. It's interesting. Robbie and I had this conversation once and we're both the same type. Is like if you offered us like a squillion $1 million to work for the company, we'd say fucking no chance. But if you offered us like maybe just a little squillion dollars to work for a year, okay, and then like renew that contract maybe at the end of the year, then okay, what I mean.
Well,
Like so
it's the
we
autonomy to leave. I mean,
right.
it's funny because that's what it's bringing up for me. Is like as you're talking about this, I think number one, it's awareness, which takes a lot. Misfits. I'm not saying that piece of it's easy. Like I said, it's funny. We make jokes about our 20s and all those lessons that we learn and things like that. But that's a fucking hard time. Like that's a hard
Oh,
time because I mean, not only do you not know what the fuck you want to do most of the time, you don't even understand that you're not doing the things you need to do to figure it out. Like, holy shit, half the time you're self sabotaging to a degree that
well,
is fucking scary.
and you look around and everyone looks like they've got their shit together and they're all doing things and they're doing the jobs and they're doing the cars and they're doing the girlfriends and the vacations and they're doing like all that sort of stuff and you're like, am I supposed to want that?
And
Like,
that's kind of the other thing that I was going to say too is like when you scratch at it a little bit deeper too, kind of the whole, even just talking about it with the military, right? Like giving people a purpose, right? Like I think genuinely when you come to that kind of friction in that area of your life, it's because you don't feel purpose in what you're doing, and I think we're all sold kind of this idea that even if you don't feel that, it might not be the job. It
well,
might you might
yeah,
need an antidepressant, or you
well,
you you might just be lonely, or you might be this, or you might be that, and it's like, bro, I'm with you, right? Like holistically, let's approach this thing as the bigger picture, but let's also not deny that what we spend fucking a third of our life doing isn't a big deal.
I was I was gonna jump in there actually, and it's like, look, if you're feeling like you have a lost purpose, it's kind of a good sign because like a an occupation or the office isn't going to give it to you.
Mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm.
like
Right,
it's
right.
you finding your own purpose it works backwards, right? You find your own purpose and you find where you want to work at and what you want to be paid for. That's going to be ultimately more satisfying than going cap in hand to the shop and saying, please employ me. Like, good place to start.
Mm-hmm,
But if you're starting to feel like you don't have a purpose or this is a bad fit, like it's that sign that the box, the universe isn't going to give it to you. Like no one else is going to give it to you. So you need to find it for yourself. And Brody's absolutely fucking right. That's terrifying. It's terrifying. It's scary. It's confusing. Um, and that's why not a lot of people do it, to be honest. And then it's the classic story of working the standard life for 20, 25 years and then realizing this didn't exactly work out the way I wanted it to. Now I've got a couple of kids and a mortgage, which is sort of the excuse that I have to stay now in this thing because I'm trapped. And I still won't shift, for instance, right?
Yeah, no, and it's funny too. It kind of leaves me with like my final, thoughts
Brody's
is
final thought.
Misfits. If there's anything that I mean, out of 60 plus episodes that I think we've tried to drill into your heads, is that even if that's the uncomfortable side of the story, that's where the value is, right? Like, so for instance, you're saying that, and my grandmother, Misfits, she just started her own business at 70 years old. Okay, she's 70 fucking years old, and she's been sewing. She's been doing this for 25 plus years. She's had people buy them. She sold them at bazaars.
What's she
She
selling?
stuffed animals.
Beautiful. There
She
you go.
handmade stuffed animals. She makes them. She does a wonderful job. Oh, here, look. This is a Christmas tree pillow.
Right on.
Little,
Right on.
little,
Little plug for Nana Eye
little plug,
Pops.
yeah. But look, I'll say this: the deeper that she gets into this, the more often she realizes how she wish she would have started sooner. And it's like Chris is talking about. I think there's a lot of people that go through that 25, 30-year stint and then get to the end of it and go, oh shit, this is not what I wanted to spend that 30 years doing. And again, imagine if she had started 30 years ago. Fuck, dude. I mean, look at what Squishmallows is today. Look at what fucking Beanie Babies turned into. I mean, there's a ton of things that could have happened for her if she had pursued it.
Yeah.
Now, what I will say as the other side to that is, you can't beat yourself up for the process. Just like Chris said, I mean, it is seriously the scariest fucking thing in the world to go out and say, number one, I don't know what the fuck I want to do. And then number two, pursue things
I'm
that
going to
might
try
not
something.
that might not be that thing. It takes some balls. It takes some
Yeah.
balls. And then on the third point, it takes even more stones once you find that thing to actually take the steps. I know more people than not that have in their mind something that they would love to do that they have not and may
Yeah.
never do. Don't be
Yeah.
that person, Misfits. It's all within
That's a
your it's
future
all within your
episode, I
means.
think.
I
Yeah.
think so too. Yeah, that yeah. And again, that's the selling of the soul that I could never bring myself to. Yes, I've been in contracts I don't want to be in. Yes, I've been places I don't want to be. Yes, I've done things I don't want to do. But there has never been a length of time in which I said, okay, I can do this and be okay with all of the me that would be sacrificed in doing that. And shit, again, that's just me. And don't get me wrong, where I've been has been just as much a battle. But it's like Chris said, it's interesting. It's interesting. I have my own, insecurities and faults and all that stuff on that side of it. But I love what I do. I love what I do, and I wake up and I'm excited about the fight being mine. It's mine. I chose this.
I you've set me up nicely. I was going to end this with a nice little silver lining, Misfits. So picture this: rather than being rewarded with a golden ticket from some employer that requires you then to to be here to do these things on our terms for this price, like very good price we're going to pay you. A little a little while ago, I was approached for a job, and it came down to negotiating. Like, so what's the sort of day rate? And for the first time, I could say, well, these are my rates, and this is my day rate. And if you're asking for this amount of work, this is what it will cost. And they agreed to it, straight up. And it wasn't like it wasn't exorbitant. It was I think it was reasonable for a professional of my skill sets to deliver in the time frame for the project that they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling after sort of hanging up the call and then confirming the email literally, half an hour later, that sense of accomplishment, of reward, of like pride in your work and purpose was richer, was sweeter, build more confidence than being gifted a reward from somebody else to on your own terms, to set your value and have that accepted.
Yep.
And that's so if we're talking about should you do it for the money, here's the disclaimer: yes, when you can set your own value, when you've earned it and you've set your own value.
I love that.
There we go. Put that on a t-shirt.
And really, though, too, I love just last thing that you said there, because I think that's where a lot of misfits don't understand the end game is, right? Is being able to bring you to the table, and you and your value is recognized. That shit is priceless. I don't give a fuck if it's a $2,000 contract or a $10,000 contract. That $2,000 feels fucking better than your $100,000 a year.
True.
I fucking promise you.
True. I remember this. Yeah. Yes. All those things. All right, Misfits. What's your hot take? Do you do it for the money, Misfits? Are you currently doing it for the money? We won't tell. Just put it in the comments. It's anonymous. After you like and subscribe and all those things, put them in the comments. Thanks for joining us for episode 64. Broedy, episode 65 is coming up. Do you know what's next?
Of course I do. Come on. This is the only one I get every season.
Well, you get there's two. There's two that you get. You get the interval and you get the finale. That's it. That's right. Episode 65 is an interval, Misfits. So halfway through every season, we just have an interval and we riff on what's going on in life. We'll probably laugh at all the dates that I've failed at lately. Actually, by the time we record, I think I got a date on Saturday night. So that by the time we record, you can probably hear all about it. So we'll see how that goes. You got anything exciting in your life that you're going to be sharing? Are you still going to be slumming it, or are you going to have an office?
We're looking.
TPC.
So, yeah.
Watch your space.
Yeah. We'll see. But
all right.
I always get excited for the intervals because it's just kind of a hats off thing. You know what I mean? And I think that's where the hardcore misfits that just love the shit out of us, that's where they are waiting for. They just love when it's just you and I just chit-chatting, and it doesn't have to be solving anything or
don't have to solve the universe's problems. We can just try and solve our own problems. All right, Misfits, you know where to find us. You can find us at promisfitspodcast.com. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. I think by the time this comes out, we're going to have ads running live, so we're going to be super popular.
Yes.
So check that out and let us know what you think. Thanks again to IGU for sponsoring Season 6. In the meantime, I've been Chris.
I've been Broedy.
And you stay classy, Misfits. Do it for the money sometimes, and we'll see you on the next one.